Hey, fourth graders, it is great to see you on your last full week of school before your break. Hope you're having a great week. Say, I have 3 Thanksgiving jokes, riddles, and remember, when you hear them, if you think you know the answer, just kind of stand there or sit there and kind of look real smart. So here's the first one. It's pretty easy. Why did the turkey cross the road? Because he wanted to prove he wasn't a chicken. Chicken crossed the road. Hey, our first story is called Jack and the Robber. And sometimes there are characters that come around in a lot of different fables. You may have heard a Jack tale before. Like, are you familiar with Jack and the Beanstalk? Well, it's that same boy. Now, some people say Jack lived down in the deep southeast, like Alabama, Mississippi, but we think he lived in Texas. And today, we are even going to say he lives in Vernon, Texas, which is right about up here. We're down here. It's right about out here. Well, Jack was not what you would say a really hard-working person. He wasn't entirely lazy, but he wasn't just real hard-working. So his dad told him one night, Jack, by the time I get home tomorrow evening, I want you to be sure to chop off all of those timbers that I have laying in the yard. Got it? And be sure to help your mom too. Okay, said Jack. Now, his dad was very hardworking. He worked on the railroad from sunup to sundown. And Jack's 2 older brothers also worked, working on other people's farms, helping them, again, from sunup to sundown. Well, when Jack got up that next day, it wasn't exactly sun up. And he went out there and saw all that timber, and he thought, oh, it's far too beautiful of a day. I think I'll go fishing instead. And so he dropped the axe and went in, got his fishing pole, and went down to the nearby pond. That night, Jack was already in bed when his dad got home from work. And he said, Jack, get out of bed. Oh, Jack said, I thought there was maybe something I was forgetting. Yeah. So he walked into the kitchen. He said, Jack, didn't I tell you to chop up that wood out there? Yes, sir. And with that, his father grabbed him and walloped him up behind. He said, now tomorrow, you be sure to get it done. Well, Jack went back to his bedroom that he shared with his brothers. And he was kind of mad, kind of embarrassed. And that next morning, before even his brothers and his father got up, he put a few things in a bundle, tied it all together, and left. He thought, I don't get any respect around this place. And he walked and he walked and he walked and he walked. And when he had been about 5 miles down the road, he heard this terrible sound. It was, wah! Wah! And he walked down the road, and it was an oxen that was making the sound. And Jack said, Oxen, what's wrong with you? What's going on? He said, well, you see, I was supposed to be helping clear some logs from the field, and they had the trees hooked up to a big chain, and then they had that hooked up to me, and I was supposed to pull them out. But you know, I'm old, Jack, and I just didn't have the strength to pull them out. So later, I heard the 2 brothers talking, and they said maybe I was just too old to work anymore and probably should be shot. Well, Jack said, you know, I'm running away. Why don't you come with me? So the ox said, sure, and he walked down the little hill, got to the road and said, let's go, Jack. So they walked a little way, a couple of miles, and then they heard, Jack and the oxen looked at each other, and they finally saw a donkey. And they said, Donkey, what's wrong with you? He said, well, You see, I was supposed to be helping out, and I was supposed to be getting some more. I was supposed to be helping pull in some crops, some cotton from the fields, and they put too much on my back, and I fell to my knees. Then I heard someone say that maybe that old mule's days were just about gone. Oh, I don't want to die. Jack said, well, come on with Ox and I. We're going to go on an adventure. So Donkey came down the hill, got on the road, and said, hey, Jack, why don't you ride on my back? So they kept on walking, and they pretty soon heard this. It was one of the saddest sounds they had ever heard. They walked around the corner and looked and saw an old hound dog with those long droopy ears, and they said, hound dog, what's wrong with you? And he said, well, I was supposed to fetch a stick, and then I was supposed to go on a hunt. I couldn't fetch the stick, and I sure couldn't smell. My nose is just all smelled out now. And they said, well, we're going to go on an adventure. Come with us. Old hound dog said, I think I'll do that. And he trotted down and he joined in. Mule said, get on my back. It'll be easier that way. So they walked on. Then they heard one more sound. And of course they found a cat. And they said, cat, what's going on? He said, well, I've been living on this farm near 16 years. Wow, said Jack. He said, yeah. And the mama here found a rat in the chicken coop, and it sort of startled her, and she said, that dang cat's not keeping away the rats. We might as well skin it alive. Ooh, I don't want to be skinned alive. Jack looked back at Ox and the donkey and the cat and the dog and the cat, said, come on, buddy, jump on this donkey and we're going to go for an adventure. And on they walked. They were having a great time when they heard a rooster trying to crow. Cock-a-doodle. Cock-a-doodle. Jack said, you sounding kind of like an old bird over there. And he said, don't I know it? I heard the missus saying that I couldn't crow very well anymore, and what's the use of a rooster who can't crow? And the company was coming, and they were going to have me for dinner. Jack said, well, they can't do that. Come on down. We're going on an adventure. Come with us. So Rooster trotted along beside Oxen, and they all walked and walked for the rest of the day. After it got dark, Jack said, maybe we better find a place to sleep. So they all began looking for something, maybe like a big patch in the grass or an abandoned house or something like that. So they walked on, and through this patch of wood that hadn't looked like it had been trampled on a long time was a dark house. They all walked up to the dark house, looked in, there were no lights. Jack pushed the door open, and he went in. He found a candle and he lit it, and they all looked around and said, oh my gosh, because the whole place was filled with food and things to drink and money, bags and bags and bags of dollar bills, $50 bills, gold coins. All the friends looked at each other and said, whoa, how did this all get here? Then Old Crow said, I bet it's that pack of robbers that I've been hearing hitting all of us small towns around here. And it's getting dark. I bet they've been out robbing some more. I bet they're going to come here, back to their hideout. We gotta let them know we've moved in. Ooh, that sounds kind of scary, said Oxen. Rooster said, I bet they'll come at midnight. That's one more hour. Hurry, guys, let's figure out a plan. Jack said, I got it. Cat, you hide in this fireplace. And let's see here. Dog, I want you right by the front door. And Donkey, come out here on the porch here, kind of stand over and turn your back around toward the porch. Okay, got that? Good, good. Oxen, I'm going to put you out here in the yard, kind of just a little over to the side. And Rooster, you go up on the top of the house, okay? And Jack hid. For just then, they could hear all these men's voices. Oh, we got that bank, didn't we? Oh, brother, I think we got more money than we've ever had. Oh, this is great. I'm sure glad we're back to the place. I'm starving. I can't wait to get inside and get us some food. Hey, Jackson. Well, Jackson was the youngest of the robbers. He said, why don't you go inside and light a fire, get the place warmed up a little bit, and light a candle or two so we can see our way there. We'll wait for the light to come on. So, Jackson went inside, and it was really dark in there. But he saw two red circles in the fireplace, and he bent over thinking they were glowing coals, and he started blowing on. And Cat reached out and scratched him down one cheek, and with the other paw scratched him down the other cheek. Ow, said Jackson as he jumped. Ow, I'm getting out of here. That hurt. He went running toward the door, and Dog leaped out of the shadows just as he passed and bit him hard on the calf of the leg. Oh, my leg. I lost my leg. Oh, it's going to kill me. It's killing me. And he went running out the door. But Donkey was waiting right out on the porch. He had backed up, and with his hind legs there, he kicked Jackson and threw him far out into the yard. And then Oxen saw him, and he bent his head down, and with his horns, he lifted Jackson up into the air and threw him over the fence, and he landed right there with all the other robbers. The robbers said, Jackson, what's going on, all that commotion? Jackson could hardly breathe, and he heard everywhere. He said, there are a bunch of men in there waiting for us. They're going to kill us. One of them scratched me on the face real bad, both cheeks. See, oh, it's bleeding. And then another one right by the door, it had a butcher knife in it. It plunged it into my leg. Oh, my leg hurt. Then I stumbled outside, and somebody took a big bat and hit me in the bottom, and I flew through the air. But then I landed on the ground, and two men, I think, had pitchforks, and they picked me up by the bottom and threw me over here. And as I was sailing through the air, there was a guy up on the roof, and he said, we got you now, bad guys. And with that, all of the robbers said, wow, we're getting out of here. And they ran and ran and ran forever and left all that money and all that food to Jack and his friends. Well, Jack and his friends, they had a good old time eating the food, and each of them took some money. But Jack was kind of getting homesick after a while, and he went home. And you know what he did the next day? He even chopped some wood. So maybe we'll have another story about Jack. By the way, here's another Thanksgiving riddle. Okay, here it is. If April showers bring May flowers, what do May flowers bring? Think about it. May flowers bring the pilgrims? Well, our next story is going to take place in El Paso, way out here. I've never been to El Paso. I'm hoping to go someday. And outside of El Paso are some very arid mountains, dry mountains. But as you get higher, there's a lot of timber, and it's a beautiful hike up. And Nando was climbing the Indian Cliff hike for the first time. And he had been so excited. And today was his 9th birthday. And his brother Manuel had said that he would take him all the way up that mountain to on the hike. So on they climbed, the brothers climbed. And Manuel had prepared well for the hike. He brought a backpack, and in it he had his lunch and water for the 2 boys. And around his shoulder he had a coil of rope. And as the 2 boys climbed the big, steep mountain hike, once in a while, when Nando just seemed to not be able to make it, he tied the rope around the tree and threw it back to Nando, and he would say, "Nando, grab on and pull yourself up. There you go, there you go. That's great, that's great." He even noticed sometimes that his little brother, when they came to the edge of a cliff, would look over and watch how the little stones would be falling down where their feet had loosened some. He said, "Nando, don't look down. Don't look down. You only get scared if you look down. Always look up and watch the trail." On they walked past thundering waterfalls. They go through trees, forests that look so dark you'd think it was night. They had to climb over boulders, and once they had to squeeze between 2 boulders. When they did, Manuel looked back at Nando and said, "I call that fat man squeeze." And Nando kind of laughed a little bit, and on they went. Soon they came to the very top of the mountain. It was kind of a flat, open space. Nando was just amazed at what he could see. He could look down across the valley below, and he could see his little town. And the cars looked like they were Hot Wheels cars. And the roads looked like they were ribbons just laid out like in the grass. And he could even see them beyond the little town, more mountains. So he was just busy looking at everything when Manuel called, "Hey, come here, I want to show you something." Manuel was over by a big tree that had a knot in it. Maybe you've seen trees with kind of a knot hole in it. And he reached in when Nando got there and opened his hand, and he had arrowheads, Native American arrowheads. "Wow," said Nando, "where did you get those?" He said, "I've been finding them up here. That's why I call this hike Indian Cliff. I think the Indians used to use this as their part of their campground and hunting ground." "That is cool," said Nando. Both of the boys were now getting hungry. So they decided to sit on a flat rock over near the edge of the steep mountainside. And they began to eat their sandwiches and drink their water and enjoy the view that they could see. They watched a buzzard circling and circling and circling below them. And they were just amazed. And they didn't talk because it was just so beautiful. When Manuel had finished his lunch, he stood up, and then the most terrible thing happened. He stood up, and as he did, the rock that he was standing on began to slip away, and it was slipping away, and it was starting to go over the edge of the cliff. And Nando fell backwards and started falling down the cliff. He could feel Nando reaching for him, saying, "Manuel, Manuel!" And Manuel was doing everything as he was sliding down the face of the cliff. He was trying to grab rocks. He even came to a tree root once, and he grabbed it, and he was kind of dangling there, and the tree root broke, and he fell down and down and down until he came to a ledge. And at the ledge, he held on for dear life. He just clenched his fingers, tried to dig it into that hard stone. And when he dared to look below him, there was nothing below him. There was no mountain, there was no cliff. It was just straight down. And he thought, no, don't look down, look up. And he immediately knew what he had to do. He hollered up, "Nando, get the rope, tie it around the Indian head tree and drop it down to me, quickly." And he could hear Nando up top doing it. And Nando was busy, and Manuel thought, "Oh, what if my arms get out? They're burning my fingers, I don't know." He said, "No, stop thinking those. Just look up and watch to see if you can see the rope coming down." And soon the rope started coming down the front of the cliff, and it snaked this way, and that way, and this way, and that way. And once it hung on another tree root, and Nando jerked it so it could get by. It looked like a brown snake coming down the mountain. It got within 4 feet, 3 feet, but at 2 feet it stopped. Manuel realized with horror that that was as long as the rope was. He hollered up and said, "Nando, it's no good. I can't reach it." Quickly, Nando pulled up the rope. His brother didn't know what he was doing, but all he could do was hang on. That's all he could think about, hanging on, even though his fingers were now bloody, even though it felt like his arms were on fire. But then he could hear the rope starting to come down the rocky front of the cliff. And he looked up, and yes, it was coming down again. It came down again, and it was like 3 feet away, and 2 feet away, and it was right at him. Manuel grabbed hold with one arm and held tightly, and then grabbed hold of the other. And pulling his weight up the rope, he began to climb. Sometimes he could get a footing, sometimes he couldn't, but he just climbed and climbed with every ounce of strength he had. Soon he was only 5 feet from the top. And he pulled hard, and he came up to 3 feet and pulled again 2 feet. Just 1 foot to go, 1 foot to go. And he pulled and threw himself on top of the cliff. And strangely, he landed face down on the ground right next to where Nando was laying. Even though he was exhausted, he sat up and looked at his little brother. His little brother's arms were wrapped around the Indian head tree, and he laid face down on the ground, and on one of his ankles was tied the rope. Now, I bet you figured out now that that was the only way that Nando could make the rope long enough to reach his brother. Manuel looked at Nando's ankle in horror, and it was bloody and bruised. And the brothers just hugged one another, and they just burst into tears because they knew they were safe, but it had been so horrifying. After they cried for a little bit, Manuel stood up and helped his brother get up, and he said, "It's okay, brother. You can lean on me as we go down." And so the boys started back down the Indian Cliff Trail with Nando leaning all over his brother's shoulders. And Nando said after a short while, said, "Manuel, you have to know, I was really afraid." Manuel said, "I was really afraid too. But I knew I had come to this cliff today with my hero, my little brother Nando." So you see, a hero can come in any shape and any age and any form. It's a hero is someone who just acts because they care about you. I hope you find plenty of heroes in your life. Let's end the day with a quick Thanksgiving riddle. Let's see if you can get this one. What smells the best at Thanksgiving dinner? What smells the best? Your nose. Hey, you've heard my stories and you've listened well. Now they're yours to tell, fourth graders. I'll see you next month. Goodbye.